There is a moment that terrifies a narcissist more than anything else. And it's not when you cry, not when you get angry, and not even when you walk away in a storm. It's when you go silent. Not because you have nothing left to say, but because you've understood everything. It's that moment when you no longer need an explanation, no longer cling to the vague hope that they will change. When awakening doesn't come with rage, but with calm realization. When you look at them, the person who once ruled your emotional world, with a cold clarity, I don't need this anymore, I don't need you to know my worth. And in that silence, the narcissist knows they've truly lost you. For good. Yet no more control, no more emotions to manipulate, no more reactions to exploit. You've stopped playing their game. And for a narcissist, that is the ultimate defeat. This video will walk you through that very moment, when the mask begins to slip, when you stop reacting according to their script, and when you step out of the cycle of pain with a peace they can no longer reach. If you're standing at the edge of your awakening, or if you've already felt a quiet shift inside yourself, then this video is for you. Hit subscribe and stay until the very end. Because it's not just about understanding how the narcissist lost you, it's about knowing why this time you're never going back. Stage 1. When you choose silence, and the narcissist begins to panic. What scares the narcissist most isn't screaming, tears, or emotional fights. What completely unhinges them is when you go silent. No texting, no explanations, no attempts to make peace, no reaction. That silence isn't punishment. It's the clearest signal that you've woken up, that you see the truth, and you've stopped playing by their rules. To a narcissist, a relationship is never about mutual love. It's a power game where they survive on your emotions, your reactions, your efforts, your constant energy poured into keeping a toxic bond alive. They don't care how much pain you're in, they only care whether or not you'll come back. And once you stop doing that, they realize what they've lost isn't just a relationship, it's a source of supply that's been feeding their distorted ego all along. They're used to you always responding, always making peace, always lowering yourself to avoid conflict, always fearing they'll leave. But when you truly stop, no more reacting, no more explaining, no more negotiating, your silence becomes a mirror reflecting the truth they hate the most, that they're no longer in control. To a narcissist, going no contact isn't just about blocking communication. It's a declaration, you no longer have any power over me. They can't make you feel guilty. They can't lure you back with recycled sweet talk. They can't twist the truth or rewrite the narrative anymore. And that deeply unsettles them. But the only power they ever had was the ability to manipulate your emotions. And now that power is gone. When you go silent, you reclaim your inner voice. When you stop reacting, you're saying, without words, I'm no longer in your game. And for someone who survives by psychologically controlling others, that isn't just failure. It's a fatal blow. The contact is you pulling the plug. It's you taking back control. It's the moment you no longer need their validation because you've already found it within yourself. And that is the narcissist's worst nightmare. Stage 2. When they start scrambling to pull you back. The moment they sense that your silence is no longer a temporary reaction but an intentional choice, they start to panic. Your calmness, your lack of response, the way you disappear without warning, it all leaves the narcissist feeling truly disoriented. Because this time, they know something has changed, and they won't sit still. They'll try everything to pull you back. Random messages as if nothing happened, vague apologies, cryptic social media posts, even showing up looking broken and wounded. Not because they miss you, but because they miss controlling you. They'll use every tool that once triggered a reaction from you: guilt, nostalgia, emotion, even sex. They'll bring up memories, say they've never loved anyone like you, that they've changed, that everything was their fault. But none of it comes from true awareness. It all comes from one thing: fear of losing their supply, you. But you don't respond. They can't gauge what you're thinking or feeling, and that drives them crazy. They used to manipulate you by reading your emotions, twisting your words to serve their agenda. But now that you've cut contact, now that you're silent, they've lost access to your mind. They can no longer shape your role in their story, and that's a direct blow to their distorted ego. In this chaos, you'll see them shift constantly, regretful one moment, blaming you the next, then pretending they don't care at all. But remember, none of it is truth. It's a tactic, a way to test whether you'll still feel something. And when you don't, when you're not angry, not explaining, not softening, they know the game is over. They can't play the victim anymore, because you're no longer playing the savior. They can't provoke, because you no longer have emotions to feed them. They can't control, because you're simply no longer there to be controlled. This is when the narcissist begins to spiral into the emptiness they've long hidden. They realize that without you, they have no mirror for their chaotic self-behold. They feel invisible. And for a narcissist, invisibility is hell. Not because they loved you, but because you were the mirror in which they saw their power. Now, that mirror is shattered, and all they're left with is themselves. Stage 3. When they completely lose control and begin to collapse. When none of their tactics work anymore, the vague apologies, the fake vulnerability, the rushed let's start over attempts, and you still don't respond, the narcissist begins to feel a fear they can't even name, the fear of no longer having power over you. This isn't just about losing a relationship, this is losing control over someone who used to be their emotional lifeline. Someone who feared losing them, forgave unconditionally, endured the long silences just to keep the peace. Now that person is gone, and for the first time, they have no role left to play. Narcissists don't love in the true sense of the word. They love you as a mirror of themselves. The more you react, the more they feel they exist. But when you stop reacting, when you exit the game, they're forced to confront what they've always run from, their true self, empty, uncontained, undefined. They enter a state of hidden panic. Outwardly, you may not see it. They'll pretend to be fine, act like they've moved on, even try to appear happy without you, but inside, they are stuck on one unspoken question. Why do I no longer have any effect on this person? That's when the real crisis hits. Narcissists don't collapse because of lost love. They collapse because control is gone. They start scanning the room, searching for someone else, a new supply, because they can't stand the idea of not having someone to reflect back their importance. But no one is quite like you, the one who used to react, care, who was addicted to their validation, and they know it. They don't miss you. They miss the version of themselves they felt like when they were with you. Their ego used to be fed by your sacrifice, your explanations, your apologies, even when you weren't wrong. Now no one does that anymore. And that emptiness begins to destroy them from within. That's the moment a narcissist, whether they admit it or not, knows they've lost you forever. Not because you lashed out, not because you tried to get even, but because you simply don't need anything from them anymore. No emotion, no validation, no response, no role left to play. You walked away, not with noise, but with quiet clarity. And to someone who survives in chaos, that silence isn't just an ending, it's the collapse. Stage 4. When you step out of the victim role and rebuild yourself. This is the stage where the narcissist is no longer part of your equation, not because you hate them, but because they no longer have anything to do with your journey. Every thought, every decision, every direction you choose now is no longer centered around them or what they did. You don't need closure, you don't need them to understand. You don't need them to admit the damage they caused, because you've realized something crucial. Healing doesn't come from their apology. It begins the moment you stop waiting for it. At this point, you begin rebuilding your life, from the inside out, not in a rush, not for show, but with a quiet self-awareness. I used to abandon myself to hold on to someone who never intended to stay. But not anymore. You start setting boundaries, not to punish anyone, but to protect your peace. You start saying no, not because you've grown cold, but because you know you no longer need to play any role just to be loved. You stop trying to be the pleasant version of yourself just to be accepted. You stop apologizing for having feelings. You stop shrinking yourself to make someone else stay. You start filtering everything that enters your life. Your words, your relationships, even how you speak to yourself. And that's when real change happens, not on the outside, but from within. If the narcissist tries to come back, they won't recognize you anymore, because the version of you they once manipulated no longer exists. The one who begged for love, who settled for breadcrumbs, that version is gone. In their place is someone calm, grounded, and no longer performing to prove their worth. Someone who doesn't scream when left behind, but walks away quietly, knowing that peace doesn't come from being kept by someone else, but from never abandoning yourself again. You didn't become colder. You became clearer. Not bitter, not hard, just no longer willing to compromise your core values. This is not revenge. This is self-rescue. And when you live in your truth, no longer acting, no longer avoiding, no longer needing outside validation, that's when your true healing begins. The narcissist, they no longer have a role in that journey, because the game is over, and you're the only one who won because you chose yourself. Stage 5, when your life shifts to a new frequency and they can no longer reach you. This is the stage where you haven't just escaped the narcissist, you've risen above them, completely. No more obsession, no more anger, no more longing to be understood. You no longer react, you no longer explain, you simply become the highest version of yourself. A version they cannot touch, manipulate, or control, and that terrifies them. Because a narcissist doesn't lose you when you walk away. They lose you the moment you no longer operate on their frequency. When you're no longer triggered by drama. When silence doesn't make you panic. When you no longer play the guessing game. When you stop living in fear of abandonment. When you start living with boundaries, clarity, and emotional autonomy, you step into a space they can't access anymore. They might still try to come back. They'll use all the old scripts, guilt, pity, promises to change. But now, it all sounds like a worn-out recording. You're not moved. Not because you're numb, but because you've learned the lesson. Anyone who truly loves you doesn't need to hurt you to keep you. At this stage, you don't have to say, "I've changed." Your life says it louder than words. Your eyes no longer seek approval. Your voice no longer trembles when you say no. Your mind no longer spirals with, "Did I do something wrong?" You're no longer in survival mode. You're living with deep inner peace. And that energy is something the narcissist can't fake. Now, you no longer need to block them, because you've outgrown them. You've risen so far, they can't reach you. No need to scream, no need to argue. Your emotional growth has already filtered them out of your life. They simply don't fit the reality you live in anymore. They know it, they feel the shift, but they have no tools left to drag you back down. You're living with clarity, passion, purpose, and gratitude, things they can't control, imitate, or walk beside. You are no longer the wounded version who stayed, hoping to be loved. You are now the whole version. Who knows that real love never begins with being chosen by someone else. It begins the moment you choose yourself. Stage 6. When they flaunt the new supply to provoke you. When all their attempts to pull you back fail. When you no longer respond, no longer show emotion, no longer play your role in their story, the narcissist moves to their final weapon. They go public with a new relationship. Not because they've truly fallen for someone else, but because they want to hurt you. They want a reaction. They want you to see that they've moved on quickly, while you supposedly haven't. Make no mistake, The new person is not a fresh start. They are a tool, a prop used as false proof that the narcissist is fine, that they are admired, that they still hold value, especially after you dared to cut all ties. They'll post affectionate photos, vague yet pointed status updates, and display gestures they never did for you. None of it is real happiness. It's a calculated performance. And the intended audience is only one person. You. Why? Because if you still feel hurt, if you feel jealous, if you react in any way, they win. They know they still live rent-free in your mind. To a narcissist, there is nothing more satisfying than making you question your self-worth. Was I not good enough? Are they? Treating the new person better. Was I the problem? But this time, you don't fall for it. You see through them. You know the new person will eventually endure the same cycle you did: idealization, manipulation, and emotional destruction. Because narcissists don't change, they just replace. And the new supply is simply another mirror to reflect their inflated ego. Just like you once were. You're not jealous, you don't compare, you don't feel the need to prove you're better, because you know this isn't a loss, it's liberation. You're silent, not because you're broken, but because you've grown. You don't react, not because you're numb, but because you've stopped playing the game. And in that exact moment, when they flaunt someone new hoping to make you jealous and you simply scroll past without emotion, they finally realize they have no power over you anymore. They haven't hurt you. They've only revealed to the world and to themselves that they've learnt absolutely nothing. And the true winner? The one who chose peace over chaos, truth over illusion, and yourself over a distorted form of love. Stage 7. When they begin to crumble, because no one believes the mask anymore. At first, they think they've won. They believe going public with someone new, acting happy and moving on quickly will hurt you and impress everyone else. But when you don't react, when the new supply begins to see the same red flags you once endured, and when their mask no longer works as it used to, things start to crack from the inside. Narcissists don't collapse all at once. They begin to unravel slowly, trapped between the image they want others to believe and the reality they're now facing. They start to realize no one buys the story anymore. No one is easily fooled by the "I'm the victim" narrative or the hollow promises that "I've changed." The new partner starts asking questions. Old friends begin to drift away, and the community that once heard them trash talk you now starts seeing who the real problem was. And for a narcissist, the worst thing isn't losing an egg, it's losing control over their image, losing the power to manipulate how others see them, losing the ability to bend reality in their favor, to paint themselves as either the hero or the wounded soul. When the mask starts to fall apart, piece by piece, they don't know how to function without it, because they've never built a true identity. Everything they've shown was just an inflated self-person primo, a hollow shell designed to cover their inner emptiness. And when no one validates that mask anymore, they begin to crumble quietly, internally, relentlessly. There's no one left to blame, no one to rewrite the story, no you to reflect back the version of themselves they wanted the world to believe. They are left face to face with themselves. And for a narcissist, that's the ultimate torment. In that moment, they may try to come back one last time, not out of love, but because you were the only one who believed in their mask for so long. But you've changed. You're no longer soft toward them. You no longer confuse pity with love. You look at them, not with hatred, not with regret, but with awareness. Because you finally understand, you weren't meant to fix them. And you didn't leave because you weren't good enough. You left because you grew too wise to waste another day in a relationship where truth was distorted and love was always conditional. And that is the moment the narcissist knows they've truly lost you. Forever. Not because you vanished, but because you woke up. And from now on, they no longer exist on the same frequency as you. You've walked through 7 stages of a journey that was painful but profoundly meaningful. not as someone who ran away, avoided, or gave up, but as a warrior who finally found the courage to stop, to confront, and to step out of a toxic emotional cycle. You're no longer playing tug-of-war, no longer begging to be seen by someone who never truly saw you. You're no longer exhausting yourself trying to salvage a relationship where you were the only one sacrificing, enduring, and breaking. Instead, you chose silence. You withdrew your energy. You severed the emotional cords that once kept you trapped in an endless loop. And this wasn't an act of revenge. It wasn't about proving anything to anyone. You did it to save yourself, to reclaim ownership of your life. This journey hasn't been easy. You've witnessed them, the one who once manipulated you, spiral in panic when they realized they were losing control. They tried everything to pull you back. Sweet words, feigned vulnerability, even rage-fueled provocations. And yes, there were moments when your heart trembled, when a part of you wanted to respond, to show you were okay, to prove you weren't hurt. Can't work out. But you didn't. You didn't run back. You didn't get jealous. You didn't jump into the emotional drama they crafted. You chose stillness, not out of weakness, but because you knew that your calm was your greatest power. You were truly okay, and that, more than anything, was something they couldn't handle. The hard truth you've now realized is this. A narcissist doesn't fear losing you as a lover, a partner, or a meaningful presence in their life. What they fear most is losing the power to manipulate you, losing the ability to turn you into an emotional puppet to serve their selfish needs. Once you stop playing the victim, once you stop responding to their manipulations, the calculated silence, the accidental encounters, the empty sweet talk, their role in your story ends. They lose weight, they lose meaning, they become a closed chapter, a book you'll never feel the need to open again. This was never about revenge. You don't have to lower yourself to get even or hurt them the way they hurt you. Your greatest act of power was to set yourself free, free from invisible chains, from repeated wounds, and from the version of yourself that once tolerated what you didn't deserve. Your victory isn't in making them regret it. It isn't in loud declarations or public displays. Your victory is peace. Your victory is survival, healing, and real growth, unbound from the wounds of the past. Now, you don't have to prove you've moved on. You don't have to announce how strong you've become, because every action, every boundary, every quiet breath of peace is the loudest declaration. I'm not going back, and you will never control me again. Its change isn't surface deep. It's rooted in how you see yourself now, in the way you set standards, in how you refuse to accept anything that falls short of your worth. And you no longer live just to be loved under harsh conditions. You no longer accept a love entangled in pain and false hope, a love that demands you trade self-respect for attachment. You've chosen yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of reverence, care, and protection. You've chosen truth, no matter how painful, because only truth will steady your feet. And most importantly, you've chosen a life where you no longer have to destroy yourself to keep someone who was never worthy of staying. This isn't just the end of a relationship, it's the permanent closing of an old chapter, a chapter where you once settled, once let others define your worth, once let the fear of losing someone silence your inner voice. But not anymore. You've changed. You're no longer easy to wound, no longer easy to manipulate with words or calculated gestures. You no longer forget who you are because you've found yourself again, a version that is stronger, clearer, and freer. If you're walking this path right now, keep going. There will be days when you're tired, days when you wonder if you can really make it through. But remember, every step you take is a step toward the light, toward a life you've always deserved. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be strong all the time. You just need to keep choosing yourself again and again, believing that you are worthy of all things good. This journey of freedom is a gift you've given yourself, a living proof of strength, courage, and self-love that you have reclaimed. Honor it. Honor yourself, because you are not just surviving, you are living fully, brightly, and freely, just as you were always meant to.